Now we search for a job, we prepared our CV and we send a really good email and we get invited for an interview. So this will be the third part from our talk today, where we will discuss the interview process and how can we prepare for a coming interview. So, Sprita, could you share with us how someone could be prepared for a coming interview? As I mentioned, especially for my students who are fresh graduates, so maybe this is maybe the first interview ever in their life or in their career.
Interesting question. Are you ever prepared for something like that? There are some stuff that you can, let's say, be prepared for. There are like a type of questions that everyone asks. I will give you some questions today that you can work on. It depends if the position is like for academia or for industry. And it depends on how the hiring process is because each company and its university kind of have similarities and differences in how they hire people. Some questions that I have noted for you guys are talk to us about yourself, which is the most scary question because what you are going to say. And of course, you're going to say something that is about your probably previous experience or research or studies. But this question is a little bit tricky because they don't want only this to hear these things because of course they are in your CV, of course they are in your cover letter. You can also give a part of who you are. So if you are like a talkative person or a person who likes food or a person who likes also sports, it is totally fine to share this type of information, not too much, of course, in a more professional way, but allow them to see like parts of your personality. If you are like shy person and you don't like to talk much about that, it's also totally fine. And it's also totally acceptable not to, start talking about yourself. I mean, too much about yourself. But you can focus on your interests, like your professional interests or your research interests, something which is more neutral, more professional, and shows your passion about what you're doing and where your life want to take you. So it will be very, very appreciated on this type of question.
Mhm.
Another question is like, tell us something that challenges you have faced and how did you overcome this challenge? Always have like a good story, backup story, something in your life that it might be at school, it might be in a previous position, it might be when you were a child, and that shows you that you have greed, let's say, that you are brave and you will face things that made you a little bit stressed or a little bit or maybe more scared, but you were so focused to your goal, you were so focused to do what you wanted to do, you put your mind on that, and you actually came out of this as winner. Even if your story ends up not so gloriously, even if you're not a winner in that story, show them that you learned things and how you wish this to be done differently or what you want, what you decided to do differently. It doesn't have to share only success stories. Even failures sometimes show that you learn from your mistakes or you learn from the environment and you are trying your best to get better on that. Uh, how Another good question. How do you prioritize your tasks?
Yeah.
Uh, Especially like, okay, in research, you are usually alone. It's very lonely as a PhD student or a postdoc. Of course, you are in a group of researchers and you can discuss about what you're doing, but all the tasks are on you. You don't have a colleague who is who you are working together on the specific same task, So how you decide to organize your day, how you decide to organize your project, and what type of timelines you create, depending on your skills and on the other, let's say, responsibilities you have as a PhD student. Maybe it is teaching, maybe it is a deadline for some papers, maybe I don't know, it is to supervise a junior. So have a plan to explain how usually you organize your day, how you usually organize the project. This is for academics, but it also applies for the industry where timing is the most important thing because usually you're a member of a big team, and depending on your prioritization, the tasks of other people are linked to the way you're working. So have a good story on how you prioritize your tasks is a key. Other question that I heard like many years ago, it was about an academic position. And one question was really weird to me. How good are you on writing papers? And I was like, way too young back then. I just finished like my first master and I didn't know how to answer this. But I knew that I have read enough academic papers. And I was like, I haven't written academic papers. I have written a lot of essays. This is the way I organize my essay, and I believe that writing a paper might be quite similar. But I don't know exactly how to do it, but I am a quick learner, and with the correct feedback, I believe I can write good papers. I don't know if it was the right answer, but I know that they appreciated my answer and they were very happy that I didn't say any lies or I didn't overplay the whole situation.
Overpromised as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Another good question that comes very often, especially when you come directly after school, is like describe us in a very high level your master thesis or your graduation project or your most recent paper, something like that. In
Mhm.
general, when you are in more academic positions, like applying for more academic positions, whatever you put on your CV as an achievement, as a paper, as a contribution, always be prepared to answer questions about everything that is written in your CV.
Mhm.
You start with a high level description and don't go into too many details way too quickly because probably they don't care about that at that moment, or maybe they don't have enough time for that. Explain something in a very high level, and if they have questions, you can elaborate your thoughts and everything through their questions. Yes, something else. I think I'm going to focus more a little bit to the PhD positions or master positions, like in general academia.
Mhm.
And usually, in those cases, you become part of a project.
Mhm.
And in academia, there is an issue most of the times that we don't have data. So I think for sure, if you are in an academic position interview, they will ask you about the data. Uh,
Mhm.
if I were you, I would check first the position, what it is about. Usually, they also send you a page, a PDF with the project proposal, so you have a better view of what you are applying for.
Mhm.
And then go Google and search data sets that could be potentially used in this type of position. Because this question is coming for sure. They will tell you that there are no data. So you can tell them that you have searched, you can show them what you have found. And in case you haven't found many or enough data, you can start talking about data augmentation, synthetic data, or have ideas on how you can collect data. What will be your methodology of collecting those data?
Mhm.
Even if you don't know how to do it, of course, you can Google and learn how to do it. And you can be open to your future employer and explain, something data are tricky. And there are this many, I can do these, and we can explore more about how we can collect and or create more data. And of course, don't forget, we are researchers. So collecting data in an ethical way, making sure that you are aware of the techniques that you are using or you promise that you are going to use are ethical and follow the GDPR. Well, especially if you are in Europe, because GDPR is for Europe, it is a huge bonus for you. Those are the main questions, let's say. Of course, in the industry, most probably they will be a little bit different. Of course, not data. It depends on the position you are applying for. Usually in industry, they have more rounds in the interviews. So the first interview is more behavioral. If you pass that one, they give you a technical assignment that you do it at home. And then you come to the second interview where you have like technical conversation with the tech people and where you explain what you're doing and how you did it. And then it moves on, and there are a little bit more interviews in the whole process. At least in Europe and specifically Netherlands, this is the usual. process. It can take up to 1 month. But what I want you to keep in mind in whichever type of interview you are, always have questions for them because they're not only interviewing you, you're also interviewing them.
Mhm.
I know it is your first job. I know you need money. I know you need to leave. But it is important for you to know in which teams you are going to be part of, and if the team or the philosophy of the company meets who you are, and if they stand for what you are standing for.
Yeah, this is really great question to be prepared for any interview. And I think this is the most common question that I think it will appear almost in all interviews that we will have, at least in our field, as a phonetician, as a linguist, whether it's industrial or going for a scholarship for master's or PhD. Usually you will get those questions. And I could add some more question or maybe more advice is I guess nowadays you can also use AI like ChatGPT or so to ask it to suggest some questions related to this rule. So you can give information about the jobs that you are applying for. And then you can ask, okay, could you suggest some questions for the interview and try to be prepared for it? And I think this could be really helpful nowadays. But also, I would say be prepared to hear a question for the first time that you are not prepared for. This will happen and it's normal. So don't show that you are so shocked or like you are really stressed because you hear the question that you never heard before. It's totally fine. And also, this is an important thing. One wrong answer will not really determine the output that much as we think. Because, for example, if it's like 1 hour interview and then I said something that,
Yeah.
oh, maybe later comes to my mind, maybe I should have said more, it's actually fine. So it's not as big problem as we usually tend to think. So be prepared always to hear more questions and new ones that you never heard before. And I think this is actually normal.
I want to elaborate a little bit more here because there are moments where you may hear a question and you will interpret it in a different way from what they are actually
Mhm.
um, wanted to say. So when you're not very sure what you heard, or if you didn't understand totally the question, don't be scared to ask to elaborate a little bit more, to understand what they mean. You're a human, and you may misunderstood something. Just be polite and stop the process and say, "I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Mhm.
Could you repeat it, or could you elaborate a little bit more by what you mean there?" Um, and you just reminded me a funny story. Some years ago, I was referred to a company for a position that I was really dreaming of. And they told me that they didn't have an open position yet, but they would like to interview me for something that they might open in a couple of months.
Mhm.
So I went through the process and I did the technical assignment. And during the technical assignment, I get in and they told me, oh my God, it was a gem. It was beautiful. And I answered all the questions. And then suddenly they asked me, how do you feel about, data leakage, the ethical blah, blah, and all this?
Mhm.
And would you ever be okay to work with a company that, you know, may have like some weird ways of getting data and stuff? So I didn't understand what they meant at that point.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, I am a very ethical person. And I started explaining them the techniques of how I would get my data, or how I protect the data, or like how I change and anonymize my data sets. So I paid so much attention to that. And then they actually said that to me. What happened if the company that you are working for has like a legal problem? Would you want to stay in the company? And I was like, I don't know if I want to be part of that type of company, I said. I was quite honest. Most probably, I would make sure that the company would never be in that position. Because
Mhm.
in my head, I never thought that the company that I was actually applying for um, had a legal issue.
Mhm.
So I was quite young. What can I say? And actually, afterwards, they didn't hire me. I was very, very sad. It was quite a dream job for me.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 days afterwards, I got the rejection. After getting to the rejection, I talked with someone from LinkedIn, one of the many people that I met, and he was like, "How are you, Spireta? What are you doing right now?" And when I explained the situation that I was in and how sad I was that I didn't understand why I didn't get hired, since my technical assignment was perfect, as they said, then that person told me, "Do you know why did you apply there? How come you actually applied there?
Mhm.
Greta, I am in a legal battle with them. They have used my tool and they rebranded it."
Oh, okay.
And I was shocked. In that moment, you know something, what I said to myself? When people say to you, things happen for a reason. That's what they say. But I say things also don't happen for a reason. That place was not the correct place for me. It looked like a good opportunity with all the tasks and all the things I wanted to do, but the environment was not the correct one for me. And of course, I got rejected. And of course, I'm very, very happy that I was never in that position to say, "Oh, thank you for hiring me, but I think I need to go."
Yeah, exactly. So it's better to not to even start from beginning.
The reason I said this story was that that was a question that I totally misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing this story with us because it's also important that sometimes in the interview the questions have like other attentions that is not really clear to us and it could actually reveals a lot about the environment in the company. And especially for women, sometimes people could ask if you are engaged or are you expecting to have a child or so in the coming future. I would love to say that this is actually not legal in general. I know that it's a lot of countries, it's not legal to ask these questions. And also, I think if it's not legal, it's not ethical as well. So you feel free not to answer these questions. So not all questions need to be answered, you know, it requires some personal information that is not related to your job. So why do you need to answer? So I think it's also good to know that for first time interviews. And another thing, actually, maybe another advice is you could ask how long the interview will be. And you can ask this from beginning, maybe before from the secretary or someone, just to ask how long the interview will be. So then you can customize a little bit your answer to the total time of the interview. Because if the interview is only like 15 minutes, you don't want to keep talking, introducing yourself for 15 minutes, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. Of
Yeah.
course. And you know, that's a very good point because usually when you are get in contact probably with an HR is if it is like a bigger company, human resources for people who doesn't know what HR means,
Mhm.
you will get also the list of the people you're going to meet. So I call it a healthy stalking, where you can go in LinkedIn or even Google those people and see their interests. Not that much to tell what they are dreaming to hear from you. No, it's more to adapt your story in terms that they will understand. So if, for example, you are a completely research person and those people know from a company like maybe developers or software engineers or something like that, that it's close to what you're doing, but their background is also more into business, then you have to adapt the way you present yourself in order to understand your value, not only about coding. So, for example, let's say that you are going for a developer's job. You are so proud that you learned how to code. You're so proud that you're self-taught. You're so proud that you have achieved many small projects. But if you are in an interview with a person who is more into the business, they want to understand your thrill and how big your achievement is. But if you say, you know, I learned all this by myself and I created this specific project that does this and this and that, and you can sell, this can help this and this and these people, and this is the impact that I created. This is a more successful answer to depending on who is interviewing you. If the person who is interviewing you is an actual software developer, saying all about how much you achieved and like some small choices that you made that made the difference for your application, then this is a more successful answer for that particular interviewer, let's say.
This is really good to search for their backgrounds, to have better understanding of where they are coming from. And I think it could also help you in understanding their questions. Because the same questions, as you mentioned, coming from someone coming from like business is different than coming from someone with software development skills. And you can change a little bit your answer depend on the background or who's asking. And I think it's a really good idea always to do is to search for the committee before the interview, if you know them. If you don't know
Yes,
them,
you can always ask the HR, because it's totally fine that you want to know with who you are going to talk to.
yeah, you could always ask, but sometimes they refuse to answer or they say like, oh, we don't know yet or something. You never know. So at least you try to do your job, you try to
True.
search and do your work and then, yeah, you leave
And
everything.
actually, also during the interview, at the very first 10 minutes, you introduce yourself. So you can take notes, who is who and what they do. So I try to classify them and understand the way that you need to promote yourself depending on your audience.